Welcome! Today we're going to talk about this absolutely beautiful 2022 Tesla Model X Plaid, the high performance version of the Model X. There's basically two versions now. There's this Model X long range and there's a Plaid. Both of them are very quick, but the Plaid is very quick. Over 1,000 horsepower, 0 to 60, I believe a little over 3 seconds. This thing can annihilate pretty much every other vehicle on the road. A lot of sports cars, let alone crossover SUVs. But this car has multiple personalities. I mean, you can mess with the drive mode selector. You can put it in chill mode. You can put the steering in comfort. And it's just a nice, cushy crossover SUV. You have an adjustable air suspension, so you can kind of put it on the comfort setting, and you're riding on a cushion of air. Or you can put it on the sport setting, and then you have a very sharp, hard-edged sports vehicle that can sit 6 people. These things are pretty amazing. I'm a big Tesla fan. I own a Tesla myself. Very impressed with the Model X. It's pretty much unlike any other vehicle on the road. The Model X first came out in 2016. The outside hasn't changed a lot, but the inside has changed pretty drastically. They updated it pretty heavily in 2021. Now we have the yoke steering wheel. Worry not, if you don't like the yoke steering wheel, they actually can do a retrofit for $700 and can put a regular steering wheel on. You don't even have to take it to Tesla. A Tesla mobile repair person can come out and take care of that for you. I like the yoke. It's kind of reminds me of like flying an airplane. I like airplanes. I have no issue driving around. We'll take it for a spin and I'll show you some cool software. This is a full self-driving. But I like the yoke because it allows for more visibility. Normally there'd be a steering wheel kind of blocking this area. And when you have the autopilot / full self-driving on, the car is kind of doing the work for you. So you don't really need to have a full use of the steering wheel. And for low speed maneuvering, it can be a little bit tough, but I mean, I have no problem moving the wheel around for low speed maneuvering. It's fine by me, but some people like steering wheels. I don't mind the yoke, I like it, but it's can easily be fixed if you don't. So the interior was updated as well. Absolutely beautiful. We have a new rear screen, which I'll show you. The Plaid only comes in a 6-seater. It could change in the future, but the base Model X, you can get in a 5-seater, or then you can get a 6 or a 7-seater configuration. But the Model X Plaid only comes in a 6-seater configuration, 2 in the middle, 2 in the front, and 2 in the back. We have this beautiful carbon fiber interior, wireless charging pad, huge screen. Instead of a vertical screen, it's now horizontal, which I like a little bit better. Kind of reminds me of what I have in my Model 3, but this one's bigger than the Model 3 and Model Y screen. The majority of the functionality is in the screen. Tesla's constantly improving things with over-the-air updates. We hear, Tesla does recalls, but when Tesla does recalls, it's just an over-air update usually fixes the recall. You don't have to take it into the Tesla service center like most other vehicles. This one has very low miles, 3,337 miles at the time of making this video, and it has a full self-driving capability. So I spec'd out a brand new Model X equipped just like this, and it's about $115,000. Which actually is a lot cheaper. When the Model X Plaid first came out, these were like $140,000, $150,000. So they've come down a lot on the new side at $115,000 for this one equipped this way. The base new car price is about $95,000, $96,000, but this one has the upgraded 22-inch wheels, which is $4,500. It has the yoke steering wheel, which is $700, and it has the full self-driving capability, which is $12,000. I have full self-driving capability in my Model 3. I've been using it for about a year and a half. It's absolutely amazing. We'll take it for a spin and I'll show you how it works. It's not for everybody, but it's pretty amazing and it's getting better. The year and a half I've had my Model 3 with full self-driving, I've had, I don't know, 6 or 7 updates, and it has, gotten better by leaps and bounds. Before it was almost unusable. I'd have to intervene like every 5 or 10 minutes, and now it drives me home and drives me to work with very little input. I very rarely, in some occasions, have to even intervene or do anything. It's capable of driving itself for the most part, but it's not completely capable, so you still need to pay attention, keep your hand on the wheel, and be ready to intervene. Sometimes in complex driving situations it can get overwhelmed, but we'll take it for a spin shortly and I'll show you how that all works. So this car is very configurable. We have a power opening trunk, we have a frunk with extra storage, and we have power opening doors, which is really nice. You can even program the doors to open automatically when you approach it with a smart proximity key, which is really nice. You also have a power rear liftgate. And to close the door, you can just put your foot in the brake and it will close automatically. Pretty cool stuff. All right, let's do a little walk around on this Model X and then we'll take it around the block. You also have these buttons on the door we can use to open them as well. Since we don't have an engine in the front, we have a frunk, which gives you lots of storage space. It's also a safety feature of all this space to absorb crash energy in a frontal collision. So you have a crumple zone 60% larger than most gas cars with an engine in the front. The Model X is one of the safest vehicles on the road. So if you value safety, the Model X is pretty up there as far as safety goes. And I think the only other vehicles that are safer than the Model X are other Teslas like the Model 3 and the Y. All extremely safe vehicles. We have this huge windshield, lots of natural light inside, amazing visibility. We have a power adjustable second row seats, very comfortable. I'm 6'2", very comfortable back here. We have these really cool Falcon Wing doors. They have sensors all around them, so they'll open differently depending on the way you're parked. If you have a low ceiling in your garage, they won't open all the way. If a car is parked really close to you, next to you, it will open differently depending on that situation. So you have these buttons right here to open and close them. They also added this rear screen, and now you can actually watch movies and stuff on it too. Really nice for the rear seat occupants. Then you have these controls right here for third row seat access. You can also access it through the middle as well. Pretty nice. So I have a button right there. So there are multiple ways to open the Falcon Wing doors. We have a power frunk. This one has a tow package. The tow hitch is in there. We have the battery charger. You can see we have more storage under here. Normally there'd be a gas tank or an exhaust system, but since it's an EV, you have more storage. The second row seats fold, I'm sorry, the third row seats fold fairly flat as well. Excellent storage. I love the looks and lines of the Model X. Even though it's a design that goes back to 2016, it does not look dated at all. It still looks absolutely beautiful, very futuristic, a lot cooler than most other vehicles on the road. Let's get behind the wheel and take this bad boy out for a spin. All right, so we're going to take this Model X Plaid out for a spin. First thing I'm going to do is we're going to show you the full self-driving capability. So we're going to navigate to Dave's in Milton. So the best way to take advantage of full self-driving is to always navigate to a destination, then it will make the right and left-hand turns and navigate you there. So to activate it, I'm going to hit that button right there. You can see the steering wheel is highlighted in blue. So we're driving a little bit on the gravel. So as long as the steering wheel is highlighted in blue, the Tesla is driving. So autopilot is basically just traffic aware cruise control, which allows the vehicle to brake and accelerate in its own lane. It's not going to stop for stop signs and red lights. It's not going to change lanes or navigate. That's where the full self-driving comes in. And sometimes if it's a little bit nervous, if it's taking too long to pull out, you can also give the accelerator a little push without deactivating the full self-driving, just saying it's okay, you're good, you're clear. Because sometimes they'll be a little bit overly cautious in navigating things. Like if it's waiting to pull out and it's obviously clear and you don't want to wait for it to figure it out itself, you can just hit the throttle a little bit and it'll just encourage it, okay, you're good to go. So we have this rotary up here where it kind of gets a little bit tripped up. There's multiple ways to take a right turn on this rotary. Sometimes they'll go in that lane, sometimes they'll take the right turn from this side, which is perfectly fine. Looks like it's going to go this way, which is a little bit better lane placement because we're going to take a little left turn up here. You can use the scroll wheel to adjust the speed limit. You know, full self-driving is pretty good on the highway. There's not too much to get it tripped up. But navigating through city streets, complex driving situations like that, this is where it can get a little bit confused and a little overwhelmed. And it's giving me what I call a nag. It's just saying, hey, put your hand in the wheel, jiggle a little bit, just showing me you're paying attention. I'll do that periodically. If you don't react to the nag, it will deactivate the full self-driving till the next driving session. And if you give it too many times, it can temporarily put you on restriction for a little bit from using the full self-driving, which is pretty smart because we want to make sure people are paying attention and not relying on the software to figure out things on its own, because it's not completely there yet. But I mean, it is pretty amazing what this vehicle can do, it gets a software update and it can drive itself to a pretty high level. We see Waymo and Cruise. Obviously, Cruise has gotten in trouble lately with, you know, it hits a pedestrian and then it kept on driving with the pedestrian stuck underneath the car for another 20 feet, which is not good. And then it turns out they actually had, looks like they actually had humans monitoring and now actually having to help the Cruise, which are supposedly autonomous vehicles. Every 4 or 5 miles, they'd have to have human intervention remotely to help it. So it's not as full self-driving as we thought. Then we also have Waymo. And these companies, they operate in pre-mapped out geofenced locations. So they have to map out the whole area where they operate in for it to work. Where Tesla is just the opposite. You can pluck this thing anywhere in the world and it will be able to navigate and drive itself. So Tesla's way of full self-driving, or, you know, self-driving, is a lot more ambitious. But if they can solve it, and I think they will, it might take another few years, I think it will really pay dividends, because you're not going to have expensive, you know, $150,000 LiDAR sensors on top of the car to make it work. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky here. It's actually letting this car go, which is good. It's getting a little bit better with merging traffic. You know, sometimes people will get mad at you where it's really the software driving, oh, you're not letting me in, or this or that. But it's just the software driving. It's not me being mean and not letting that person in. But the software has gotten a lot better with merging traffic and letting it in, and, you know, seeing the turn signals on and stuff like that. So that's the thing, is like, obviously when you're using full self-driving, you don't want to have people getting mad at you. You know, it's not fun to have other drivers on the road constantly getting mad at you because it's driving weird or doing weird stuff or being rude to other drivers or not letting them in. Because obviously people don't know you're operating on full self-driving. They just assume that you're kind of being a knucklehead. But it's done a great job navigating so far. Sometimes I'll have to do a few interventions, like when it's pulling out in front of traffic. If it looks like it's going to pull in front of a vehicle, sometimes I need to intervene and hit the brakes. Where it might be okay, but I don't want to risk it. So full self-driving is kind of like, I guess the best analogy I'd like to use about it at this point, and I'm sure it will progress a lot further. It's right now, it's like driving with like a 15 or 16-year-old kid who's starting to drive. For the most part, they do fine, but they get confused and they can get your heart rate up a little bit if you're not used to it. All right, so it did a pretty good job getting us navigated to Dave's in Milton. Pretty good place to eat. They also have drinks and live music. It can get a little bit tripped up in this spot right here. So I'm going to take over. It's kind of a funny little entrance. So that's a situation where I had to take over, where it was just getting a little confused. All right, now we're going to navigate back to the dealership. So Tesla's trip planner is always great to use. If you're not sure if you have enough range to make it to your destination, just put it inside the trip planner and let the car navigate there. And if you don't have enough range to make it, it'll automatically route you to a supercharger, so you can charge the vehicle up. I'll tell you how long to charge for, so you have enough range to make it to your destination. You can see here, it's 2.8 miles away. It's about 10 minutes, and I'll arrive to my destination with about 67% of battery left in the vehicle. So I got it. I have it into our navigation. The steering wheel is highlighted in gray, so it means full self-driving is available. But this is kind of a narrow road, so I'm going to get past this car before I turn it on. He's being nice and letting me go. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to pop it on. Steering wheel is highlighted in blue. Now the Tesla is driving. So it does take us a little time, making these turns right here. So a lot of times you can hit the gas. I'm just going to let it do it at the moment just to encourage it to go. But it's better to be overly cautious sometimes than to pull it in front of oncoming traffic. So yeah, when you're driving in less congested areas, like on a Sunday when there's not a lot of drivers, or roads like this, where there's not a lot of traffic, this is where full self-driving kind of really excels, and you can kind of relax a little bit. You do have to pay attention. It does take, a certain mental workload to supervise things, but it also takes a mental workload off of you, especially when it's a little bit more relaxed type driving, when the car is doing the work for you, because you're just supervising and the car is doing the driving for you. And I can't tell you how nice it is. You know, you don't realize how much brain power it takes, even on the highway, to keep your vehicle centered in the lane on the highway. It takes a lot of brain power. So the autopilot in that aspect works fantastic. All right, so we're doing pretty good navigating so far. The visibility with this huge windshield is absolutely amazing. There's no other vehicle that I've seen with a windshield like this. It's absolutely spectacular. It's really well tinted here, so the sun's not, you know, beating down on you on those hot days. All right, got a right turn coming up here, green arrow. And this is where this one has a hard time. Oh, there it goes. I was gonna say, my car doesn't like to turn on that green arrow, but this one did. I guess they're all a little bit different. Then we have a right-hand turn coming up here, and the real hard part is a rotary. I usually give it about 30% chance of making it through the rotary fine. Usually it gets tripped up and I have to intervene, especially if there's a lot of traffic in it, but we'll see how it does. There's definitely a lot of traffic today, so this will be a good test. All right, and it's going on its own. I didn't even have to hit the throttle. And it's come a long way. When I first started driving my Tesla, I'd have to intervene all the time. I intervene a lot less, and it wouldn't come close at all to handling this rotary. When I first got mine, it just would start freaking out. I'd have to take over very fast. So it's improved a lot. You know, there's a lot of moving vehicles. I mean, this vehicle, this Tesla's got cameras all around it. It's basically tracking all these vehicles, doing all the different things, anticipating what they're going to do. It's not easy to have a computer, to have a car, and to anticipate all this stuff, you know, while at the same time making it, you know, affordable to consumers, not costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's a little hesitant here, so I'm just going to give it a little throttle, just saying it's okay to go. They're slowing down. I'm just giving a little throttle just to help it go through the rotary. I took my foot off the throttle and it's finishing up itself. So it did pretty good going through that rotary on its own. I did have to give it a little bit of throttle just to encourage itself. Eventually it would have figured it out, but we don't want to annoy the people behind me or in front of me, because they don't know I'm operating full self-driving. They just think I'm some knucklehead driving this Tesla Model X on my own. All right, so we're pretty much smooth sailing back to the dealership. Easy peasy for the full self-driving. So we're gonna end the trip there. I'm gonna hit the brake, shutting off the full self-driving. And for the grand finale, we're gonna take this for a little bit of a blast on the highway. I'm gonna put it in drag strip mode. And we'll see how this thing accelerates on the highway. So for peak performance, it'll take 32 minutes for it to condition the battery to get peak performance. But already this thing's gonna be ridiculously fast. Even without waiting the 32 minutes for the peak performance, this thing is absolutely insane the way it accelerates. So just like going through stop and go traffic on the highway, things like this, full self-driving can handle this no problem. Autopilot actually can do a pretty good job on roads like this, as long as you're not changing lanes and making left and right hand turns. And you get spoiled by it. It's almost unbearable for me to drive a vehicle without autopilot or full self-driving if I'm driving any sort of distance. If I have to run an errand for the dealership, I gotta go on the highway, I'm going up to Seattle, Redmond, I'm taking a Tesla with either autopilot or full self-driving. A lot of times I'll just take my own Tesla. And I'm the used car manager. I can drive pretty much any vehicle we have in our inventory for, you know, work purposes. If we have to run an errand, no one's gonna question me. You know, but for me, one of the ultimate luxuries is not always having, you know, beautiful, you know, opulent interior like in a Range Rover or Mercedes. The interior is pretty nice in this. It's a little bit more, you know, muted, a little bit more low profile. One of the ultimate luxuries for me is a vehicle that can drive itself, especially in, you know, stop and go traffic on the highway. It is unbelievable. You'll be spoiled so much by these systems, you know. All right, we got a straightaway here. I'm not gonna go crazy, you know, I represent the dealership. I'm not gonna break the speed limit or anything like that, but we'll see how this thing accelerates up to the speed limit in drag strip mode. So I'm just gonna mash the throttle right now. Wow. Yeah, this thing is absolutely insane how this thing accelerates. It is ridiculous. Your own personal amusement park ride. And the roll and acceleration is unbelievable. If I was in a high performance, even if I was like an 800 horsepower twin turbo high performance vehicle, you know, with an internal combustion engine and a regular transmission, there's a little bit, if I mash the throttle right now, there's a little bit of hesitation where the engine has to rev, you know, the gear has to hunt, you know, which gear am I going to downshift into? Here, you just hit the throttle and you have instant acceleration. It's so easy to break the speed limit. I could go over 100 miles an hour so easily in this thing, it's not even funny. But am I going to do that? Especially on camera. But you get the idea. And even, you know, if you really aren't a speed demon, you know, you can put it in chill mode and it's still a very nice vehicle to drive without, you know, the performance. But, you know, the thing I like about having that instant acceleration, it comes in handy when driving, because, you know, sometimes, you know, we don't always have the most friendly and courteous drivers on the road. Sometimes I'm trying to merge on the highway, or I want to change lanes and someone might not want to let you in. There's so many times where I'm trying to merge in the highway and there's all these cars coming in, they're not slowing down to let me in. Well, guess what? I can make room for myself. I just match in the gas and I give myself enough room to allow myself to merge into the traffic. There's no one who's going to be able to out-accelerate you. You can find your own gap in traffic with this thing. You're not at the mercy of anyone else. And, you know, speed has some advantages too, you know. Sometimes, you know, maybe you're driving on the highway and you have someone who's driving pretty crazily. Maybe, you know, you're in a road rage situation and you just want to get away from them. Well, believe me, you can get away from anybody in this thing. You know, if you're going to rob a bank, just as long as you have enough range, you know, a fully charged battery, they're going to have a hard time catching you in this Tesla Plaid. Even a helicopter might have a hard time catching it. This thing is just absolutely ridiculous. It's a point-and-shoot sports car. You have all-wheel drive, great traction stability control system. Electric motors are very smooth, you know, and they more precisely engage in traction control when needed. Where it's a little bit more it's not always as fluid and smooth in a gas car when the traction control system's kicking in. Electric motor is a lot more precise and smoother. And then let's talk about maintenance. All right, so, you know, we're not going to compare this to like a Dodge Caravan or you know, Honda Odyssey. People who buy a Model X Plaid, you're going to be comparing it to like an AMG Mercedes or a BMW M Series. Well, all those vehicles have really complex, you know, high performance engines which require a lot of maintenance. They have thousands of moving parts. You're gonna have to service them every 5 to 10,000 miles, and it's not gonna be cheap. And then you're gonna have the big services like the 60 to 90K services. You know, if you look at the whole life of owning a vehicle like that for 4 or 5 years, 60, 70, 80,000 miles, you're gonna pay a lot of money out for maintenance. You know, brakes on a high performance BMW or Mercedes can be, you know, $1,500, $2,000 just for front brakes. The brakes in this thing with regenerative braking will probably last 150, 200,000 miles. And there's not much maintenance to do on this thing. You know, tires, you know, obviously the thing can chew through tires pretty fast, but that's pretty much it. Tires, wiper blades, cabin filter. There's no oil changes, no timing belts, no timing chains, no serpentine belts. You don't have any of those big maintenance costs that you would compared to a gas vehicle. Then let's talk about warranty. A lot of, you know, people who buy Teslas or EVs, they ask me, well, how long is the battery going to last? When do we have to replace the battery? Well, the battery is kind of like an engine in a car. It can get replaced, but the whole idea is for the battery, like an engine in the car, to last the service life of the vehicle. So if you take care of this battery and you don't overcharge it, generally for daily use, they like you to charge it to 80%, charging 100% every once in a while for a road trip is fine. You should get 200,000 or 300,000 miles out of the battery. Then you have a very robust warranty. You have an 8-year, 150,000 mile warranty on the battery and the drive units. So it'll be quite a while before you'll have to worry about having to pay for a battery out of pocket. And then you compare it to like a Mercedes or BMW, they just have a 4-year, 50,000 warranty. They don't have extra powertrain warranty. This has the equivalent of an 8-year, 150,000 mile powertrain warranty. The engine, the drive units, the electric motors are covered for 8 years, 150,000 miles, whichever comes first. Obviously, it's got a little bit of use on it now since it's used, but still a lot of coverage left. And you can see, you know, maneuvering with the yoke, I'm not having trouble at all. You know, parking, you can swipe to tell which direction is. So, you know, swiping and using the yoke is not that hard at all. Some people might, you know, we're just used to steering wheels the way they are, but like the iPhone, you know, everyone was used to phones with buttons on them, and then the iPhone came along, and they're like, well, people are like, well, no, people aren't going to want to buy a phone without buttons. Well, we all know how that went, so, you know, we might start seeing more yokes in the future. I like the visibility, and you can see I'm not having an issue at all parking it. Well, that's my long-winded spiel. There's so much to talk about. I could probably talk another hour. About this vehicle. There's just so much to talk about. But yeah, Model X Plaid 2022 with full self-driving, beautiful 22-inch wheels, one amazing high-performance crossover with room for the family. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you soon, and have a wonderful day.